Welcome to our Good Friday service of devotion and reflection from St. Patrick's at Hogsback. This is the most solemn day in the church calendar, Good Friday. I'm going to start telling part of the story between Jesus' arrest and the actual crucifixion. After Jesus was arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane, he was taken to Caiaphas, the high priest. The religious leaders had for some time been plotting to kill Jesus. They felt threatened by his teaching and his ability to draw crowds. His popularity was growing. He performed inexplicable miracles, healed the sick, and preached love and service for our God and our fellow man. This was something very different from the accepted teaching of the Pharisees and Sadducees. The priests accused Jesus of blasphemy and claiming to be the long-expected Messiah, and they bade for his death. Jesus was cruelly beaten and tortured and then bound by the Roman soldiers before being taken to appear before Pilate, the Roman governor, for trial. After questioning Jesus, Pilate realized that this was an innocent man. Fearing for his own political career and afraid of the assembled rabble, he washed his hands of the case. He then handed Jesus back to the clamoring, fickle crowds to be crucified. The soldiers dressed Jesus in a cloak and put a crown of thorns on his head, mocking and jeering at him as the supposed king of the Jews. Then they led him out to be crucified. Jesus, badly injured and stumbling, accompanied by a large crowd and carrying a heavy cross, was taken to a hill outside Jerusalem called Golgotha. There he was nailed to the cross to die.
Our first reading this morning is Luke 23, from verse 32 to 43. 2 other men, both criminals, were also led out with him to be executed. When they came to the place called the Skull, there they crucified him, along with the criminals, one on his right, the other on his left. Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." And they divided up his clothes by casting lots. The people stood watching, and the rulers even sneered at him. They said, "He saved others. Let him save himself if he's the Christ of God, the chosen one." The soldiers also came up and mocked him. They offered him wine vinegar and said, "If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself." There was a written notice above him, which read, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. "Aren't you the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other criminal rebuked him. "Don't you fear God," he said, "since you are under the same sentence. We are punished justly, for we are getting what our deeds deserve. But this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." Jesus answered him, "I tell you the truth. Today you will be with me in paradise."
Jesus, remember me. Good Friday is a solemn day. We trust that our devotion today will lead you to a quiet place. This is not only a historic event, but at the core of our faith. Without the crucifixion, there would be no resurrection, no Easter, no new life. Our focus is on two of the final words Jesus says from the cross. Firstly, today you'll be with me in paradise. Jesus responds to the prisoner's plea. The two men crucified with Jesus would probably have heard about Jesus, but their own life circumstances and actions had led to them being crucified. We don't know their life stories. The only thing we know about is how they engaged with Jesus, a high-profile prisoner accused of threatening the state and religious leaders. All three are facing the imminent end of their lives through a horrendous punishment, crucifixion. These two men offer us insight into the depth of our estrangement from God and the path back to reconciliation with God. All three men in physical pain, emotionally exhausted, and at their wits' end. Quite understandably, one hurls insults, angry, perhaps also embarrassed that Jesus had brought a crowd who would also witness his shameful death. The other prisoner speaks to Jesus and the first prisoner. He clearly feared God and death and recognized who Jesus was. He asked that he be remembered when Jesus came as King. And Jesus then and there responds with the wonderful words, "Today you'll be with me in paradise." Interestingly, this prisoner addresses Jesus directly by name. He says, "Jesus." Why is this significant? I recently heard a prison pastor speaking about a Bible study he did with a group of prisoners about this text. The pastor said to the group that he was puzzled by the prisoner addressing Jesus directly by his name. One of the prisoners said it was quite obvious he understood, because they had spent the previous night in a cell together. This created the potential openness and honesty between the prisoners. They were all in the same boat, waiting for their death the next day. It did not matter what their crime had been. The prisoner who had been connected with Jesus in the cell the night before must have recognized Jesus as the Son of God. His plea to be remembered is from his heart, with the conviction that perhaps this would be possible. We don't specifically know what he meant, "remember me," but being remembered means not being forgotten. In that painful, alienated, lonely place, Jesus brings comfort. You will be with me, not forgotten. You will be with me in paradise. And in his suffering, Jesus brings comfort. This story is one for us too. How do we relate to the suffering Christ in the world around us? Do we dismiss the pain of others, the distress of death, or more simply, the uncertainty of lockdown being lifted? Do we dismiss the increasing hunger and anxiety of many around us? Do we respond to the needs of those around us, like Jesus did? Perhaps for us, it is in entering into the pain of Jesus on the cross and the pain of the world, we, like the prisoner, encounter the suffering, compassionate Christ in a new and deeper way. In this pinnacle moment of our faith, the crucifixion of Jesus, can we enter in some small way into his agony, the pain for our own brokenness, sin, and pain for our broken world? How often do we turn our backs on God, on love, on relationship? Are we not sometimes estranged, like the angry prisoner? How do we respond to Jesus? Can we say, You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. This opens a future for us in the heart of God. And so we call out, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Perhaps we are also uncertain, but Jesus' response to our plea is the same. Today, you'll be with me in paradise. Love one another as I have loved you.
Our second reading continues from verse 44 to 46. It was now about the 6th hour, and darkness came over the whole land until the 9th hour. For the sun stopped shining and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Jesus called out with a loud voice, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit.
We find Jesus on the cross. Fully God, he is also fully man. He suffers agony in body, mind, and spirit. He has been stripped of his possessions, reputation, health, security, and dignity. All those he has loved, his mother and disciples, are no longer in his mind. He is alone. See from his head, his hands, his feet. Sorrow and love flow mingled down. Did e'er such love and sorrow meet, or thorns compose so rich a crown? His death is for all humankind, for you and for me. This is the basis of our faith, the confidence that we have that Jesus' death leads to resurrection, to life eternal, to relationship with the Holy One. This is the ending that does not end. Love so amazing, so divine, demands my soul, my life, my all. Father, into your hands I place my spirit. He said this and died.